Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Book Trek 2023, the summer of Trek. On its last day, this is the last day of Book Trek 2023. This was started a couple of years ago by Vin at Revenant Reads to celebrate Star Trek fiction, or Star Trek fact, and with the occasional away mission now and then to read science nonfiction. And he did me the honor of inviting me to co-host a couple of years ago, and I have been a co-host ever since. And this year we did a 3-month event, but very loose. No organized by franchises, no organized by time periods or anything like that. Instead, it was just during the summer, which a lot of us associate with Star Trek, read some Star Trek. That's all. That's all you have to do. That's all I had to do. But I overdid things, as I always do. I'm going far afield, reading stuff that I hadn't read before, rereading stuff that I have read before. I was stalled a little because the summer of Trek also became the summer of Trudge. For me, it became the summer of a massive job of work that I had to do that wouldn't have felt so bad if I had done it in a timely manner. But instead, I waited and waited until my only options were either to fail or to do the impossible. And I did the impossible. So I didn't make as many Book Trek videos as I didn't make one every day. Which is okay, I think. I'm assuming that everybody who associates with me during a BookTube event knows what's going to happen. They know that I'm going to make 30 videos instead of only 2. I'm assuming that's the case. It's been a grand, grand time. It's been so much fun, as Book Trek always is. And we are ending today. And the book I picked last night, I picked it at random. I remember when it came out, but I didn't read it. So last night was a new read, which is kind of what I wanted. But it nevertheless fulfilled a theme. The last few Star Trek books that I have read for Book Trek 2023 have been whodunits. They've been mysteries, murder mysteries, sort of clothed in the skin of Star Trek. And they have not been very successful along those lines. I didn't get satisfying Star Trek, and I also didn't get a satisfying murder mystery. And that made me wonder a lot. That actually made me wonder a lot. Star Trek is it's not a kind of fiction. It's an IP. Right? It's a fictional universe. So theoretically, it should be able to hold any genre. Theoretically, you should be able to do that. Theoretically, someone could write a novel called The History of the Dominion War that is just a history of the Dominion War. No gunfights, no nothing. Just someone writing a history of the Dominion War. Theoretically, you should be able to do that. There wouldn't be any market for it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it would be bad, even if there was no market for it. Same thing with murder mysteries. I'm not here being snotty when I say that Star Trek is an umbrella that can cover all kinds of genres. I am not here going to allude to one of Harlan Ellison's favorite one-liners at conventions. Never noticed that everybody booed him when he said it. Never would have cared. In fact, he probably did notice and liked it for that reason. He used to say this too, about Doctor Who and Star Trek. He used to say they're an umbrella, and you can fit any kind of story in it. And he used to quip that he's just waiting for the day when some science fiction shows up in Star Trek. It's a pretty good line, but it's mighty obnoxious. But anyway, I picked a book at random last night, and it filled that same pattern. It is technically a murder mystery, or maybe a courtroom murder mystery, which is different, right? A courtroom murder mystery is different from just a straight-up murder mystery. I picked this. This is by Bob Ingersoll, but not the Bob Ingersoll, and Tony Isabella. I'm assuming it's not the Tony Isabella that I know. I'm assuming these are names of people that I associate these names with other people. But anyway, they teamed up to write this, The Case of the Colonist Corpse, a Samuel Cogley mystery. Classic Trek, this is the original series, and you can tell from the subscript there that it's about Samuel T. Cogley, attorney at law, who appears only once in the original Star Trek. It's a great turn. He's a great supporting character in the episode Court Martial. Where we learn that he's a little bit on the eccentric side. He has a very confident but eccentric manner in court. He almost never loses in court. That's certainly the implication. He'll take any case, especially if the person seems to be dead bang guilty. As in Court Martial, Captain Kirk does seem to be dead bang guilty because the evidence against him is a computer, not a person who could lie or be misled. Along those lines, in that episode, Samuel Cogley famously says that he prefers books to computers. He has a computer in his office, and he never uses it. And he also doesn't trust computers. So it's a very antiquarian thing. Long before we are specifically told that it's a quirk of Captain Kirk's that he prefers print and paper books. We get it from Samuel Cogley, which has led a lot of fans over the decades to say that Kirk gets it from Cogley. They spent a lot of time together, as they must have, while Cogley was preparing his case. Again, court-martial is a beautiful example of what I have been harping on all summer long for Book Trek 2023. Imagine if somebody wrote the episode Court-Martial as a book. Not as a Star Trek book, as a book that features Star Trek characters. As a book, as a serious, genuine adult book. I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, if it's been a long time since you've watched the episode, that the dialogue in the episode very much would support that. You wouldn't have to change a word of it. You wouldn't have to mature up a word of it. The dialogue in Court-Martial is fantastic. I think the acting in Court-Martial is fantastic. The story in Court-Martial is fantastic. A little bit on the lurid side, but still fantastic. What I wouldn't give for Paramount or whoever it is who would have to do it to authorize somebody to write a 270-page book of Court-Martial. What a thing that would be. But anyway, this novel does indeed feature the return of Samuel Cogley, Turnhit Law. It has almost no broader Star Trek scope to it. It's mainly just him. This involves a planet in the neutral zone. In the neutral zone between the Federation and Klingon space. This novel is set very firmly under the careful eyes of the Organian Peace Treaty, which you have to be a long-term Star Trek fan to even know. The Organians were a race of energy beings who decided to impose a peace treaty between the Federation and the Klingon Empire. So neither the Klingons nor the Federation were willing participants in it. The Organians just did it. They said, if you don't do this, we'll destroy your spacefaring capability. Simple as that. It was just fiat. It's never dealt with, really, in the show. In the original show, it's there mainly because otherwise the showrunners, Roddenberry and his people, would have had to explain why the Federation and the Klingon Empire weren't at war. They are ideologically, diametrically opposed, and they hate each other. So why aren't they at war, or rather still at war? Of course, the backdrop to the great Star Trek fan film, the Journey to Axanar, I think is the name of it, or The Road to Axanar. The backdrop of that whole thing is the war between the Klingons and the Federation, which we see in the original series in its ember days. And then the Organians impose a peace treaty. So, according to the terms of the peace treaty, if there's a planet in neutral territory, whichever group gets to claim it will be dependent on how well they can develop that planet. So there's a Klingon colony on this planet, and there's a human colony on that planet, a Federation colony on that planet. And the inciting incident of this courtroom drama, this mystery, is that the governor of the Federation colony is found dead. Murdered. With the governor of the Klingon colony standing over him with the murder weapon in his hand. So naturally, Samuel Cogley takes the case of the Klingon. Naturally he does, because it seems so open and shut. It seems just completely secured. And I confess, I went into this with misgivings, because the last two Star Trek books that seemed to ape another genre really disappointed me. And this did not, at all, disappoint me. Now, I don't know if that's the Tony Isabella that I knew was a hack of the first water, in the good sense of the word. You give him anything, any kind of raw material, and you give him the most ridiculously short deadline imaginable, and he will bring out something really good, really entertaining. Might not be Schopenhauer, but it'll be really, really good. That's the only indication I have that this might be the Tony Isabella that I know. But this works completely. Our authors even have the sense to make it not smooth going. They don't make Samuel Cogley a kind of god in the courtroom. He misjudges the courtroom. In one key part in this book, he misjudges things completely, misjudges the lay of the land completely, almost loses his case. And you feel that. And it has nothing to do with phasers, it has nothing to do with batleths, it has nothing to do with Enterprise or any starships. I enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know, it says a Samuel Cogley mystery, so I don't know actually if there are any others. If there's part of a series that, like the Starfleet Corps of Engineers, maybe this took off and there were a lot of novels like that. If there are, I'd like to read them. I'd like to write one. But I really enjoyed this. So we are ending Book Trek 2023 on a positive note, in both senses of the word. Not only is it a book that I hadn't read before, I thought that would have been a little bit weak to react to back-to-back disappointments by going to a book I know I like in order to end our, the summer of Trek, which is all about in exploring strange new worlds and strange new civilizations, I felt that I should adhere to that ethos of exploration. Because I'm an uber geek that way. So I did. I read one that I've not read before, even though this is quite old. I think this is 30 or 40 years old. Really enjoyed it. So we are ending Book Trek on a very positive note. And even if my book for today had been a disappointment, I was facing that possibility. If I picked something new, I was facing the possibility that it would disappoint. Even if it had disappointed, I would still be glowing with happiness at the end of Book Trek. What a time this was. What a wonderful, wonderful, fun event. Here's hoping that if the great bird of the galaxy is kind to us all, here's hoping that we all reassemble next year for Book Trek 2024. What fun that would be. I loved it. Loved all the videos, loved all the conversations on Voxer, just loved it all. I don't need much excuse to delve into Star Trek, and this was all the excuse I needed. I got a lot of Star Trek reading done. I think probably like June on the Range, I will probably forego any Star Trek reading between now and then. I haven't been, I have to say, hugely tempted by any Star Trek novels that have come out from New Trek. So I probably will, unless the publisher sends one to me, I will probably just skip those until next year and then overdose again. So that's the end of Book Trek 2023. I had a blast. I hope you all did too. I'll sign off for now, and I'll see you next year. Thank you, BookTube.